In 922 AD, Russia became the site of a scene that haunted Ahmad ibn Fadlan for life. He witnessed Viking raiders performing intimate rituals with a slave girl before burning her alive with their dead chieftain. His chilling account reads like a horror movie, but it was real. What you're about to discover is backed by historical records that show how Vikings weaponized sexuality in war, used it to control society, and even saw it as a gateway to the afterlife. These practices shaped medieval Europe and established power dynamics that still affect us today. The evidence is so disturbing that many historians once dismissed it as propaganda. From public wedding consummations to sexual executions for entertainment, rape as psychological warfare to human sacrifice in funerals, Viking sexual rituals were calculated acts of dominance. This brutal combination of violence and pleasure left a legacy that still shocks modern audiences. The facts come from sagas, archaeological finds, and eyewitness accounts. In Viking society, your sexual role determined whether you earned respect or faced social exile. Power and dominance ruled intimate relations as bluntly as a battle axe. Two terms were crucial to survival: Vagar and Rager. These labels described men seen as sexually passive or feminine, and to be called Vagar was a grave insult. Viking law went so far as to allow murder for such an accusation, with no legal repercussions for the killer. This created a rigid sexual hierarchy, more like a caste system. The active partner, the one who penetrated, held masculine honor and societal respect. The passive partner? He lost his manhood, his legal rights, his property, and his place in the community. In Viking culture, your sexual position decided your standing in society. In Viking society, being accused of sexual passivity had shocking consequences. Men labeled as sexually submissive could lose their right to testify in court, inherit property, or even carry weapons. Essentially, being bad in bed could strip you of your citizenship. The Icelandic sagas tell of men who lost everything after rumors about their sexual performance spread, leading to bloody feuds. In the saga of Burnt Yol, a single accusation of being unmanly sparked a conflict that killed dozens. Egil's saga recounts warriors traveling great distances to kill anyone who questioned their masculinity. Even a hint of sexual submission could ignite a killing spree. Women also used these insults as weapons, with wives publicly questioning their husbands' sexual abilities and ruining their reputations. In Laxdæla saga, one woman divorced her husband and destroyed his social standing by claiming he was too gentle in bed. In Viking society, the obsession with sexual dominance created a cycle of violence. Men were constantly forced to prove their masculinity through aggression, which led to more conflict, requiring even more displays of power. Sexual violence became a tool of social control, as the fear of being labeled sexually passive kept men in check and reinforced the Viking power structure. Vikings turned sexual assault into a method of psychological destruction. They knew that breaking a man's spirit was often more effective than killing him. The sagas describe the Klumhog, a brutal act of cutting or stabbing an enemy's buttocks to symbolize anal penetration. This wasn't random violence, but a calculated humiliation, designed to mark a man as sexually conquered. The twisted brilliance of this system was that Vikings could destroy someone's masculinity without ever having to engage in the act themselves. The Vikings didn't stop at mere symbolism when it came to asserting dominance. Defeated leaders and warriors faced systematic sexual assault, meant to transfer their masculinity to their conquerors. In the saga of the Volsungs, captured kings were publicly raped to demonstrate total submission. Vikings believed that forcing someone into the passive role drained their masculine essence, adding it to the victor's own. The psychological toll was devastating. Violated men couldn't return to their communities with honor. Often they were rejected, marked as unmanly, and some chose suicide over the shame. Others became outcasts, haunted by their disgrace and serving as symbols of Viking dominance. The Vikings also practiced sexual enslavement on an industrial scale. Slave markets in Dublin and York were filled with captives, many reserved for sexual use by Viking leaders. The Orkney saga mentions Earl Seager keeping a harem of Irish women for his pleasure. Viking laws created a harsh two-tier system, with free women protected from assault, while slaves had no rights. Any free man could use a slave sexually, and killing one for resistance barely counted as a crime. Raping a free woman meant death, but raping a slave was merely a fine. The scale of this system was staggering. Archaeological evidence from Dublin reveals that up to 30% of the population were slaves, many captured specifically for sexual purposes. The Vikings built an economy around human trafficking for intimate exploitation. This dehumanization wasn't just cruelty, it was strategic. Villages that heard of Viking sexual practices often surrendered without a fight, fearing what would happen to their people. The threat of sexual violence became a more powerful weapon than any sword. Viking weddings were more shocking than modern reality TV. Privacy was so rare that it was legally problematic and expensive. The bride's family had to witness the couple's first sexual encounter to confirm consummation. If no one could verify penetration, declared he was about to take her virginity, witnessed by guests who would then escort them to the marriage bed. Priests and family members blessed the bed with fertility prayers that felt more like dirty talk. The consummation happened with family outside, straining to hear signs of completion. The next day, bloodied bed sheets were displayed as proof of the bride's virginity. These sheets often served as legal documents, ready for court if the marriage was disputed. In some cases, trusted relatives even stayed in the room as witnesses. The saga of Grettis the Strong tells of a wedding where the bride's uncle stayed in the room to ensure the marriage was properly consummated. Imagine your own uncle watching you on your wedding night. The legal consequences were serious. If the bride wasn't a virgin, her family could be sued for fraud. If the groom couldn't perform, the bride's family could demand compensation for damaged goods. Icelandic law even set specific penalties for failures during the wedding night, turning intimacy into a legal transaction. In Viking society, love wasn't the focus. Property, inheritance, and political alliances were, making sexual performance a matter of legal and financial importance. Ahmad ibn Fadlan's eyewitness account reads like a chilling anthropological study, detailing Viking funeral rituals so shocking that historians spent centuries trying to disprove him. Sadly, archaeological evidence has confirmed most of his observations. When a Viking chieftain died, the funeral was a multi-day orgy designed to channel life force from the living to the deceased, ensuring the chief's power in the afterlife. Vikings believed that sexual energy could be transferred through intimate contact, and Ibn Fodlan describes the process with unsettling precision. The dead chief's slave girls were asked, "Which one of you will die with him?" One would volunteer, believing she would join her master in Valhalla as his eternal companion. What followed would make modern horror films seem tame. The chosen slave girl spent the final days before the funeral engaging with multiple men from the tribe. She was viewed as a sacred vessel, meant to carry the tribe's life force to the afterlife. Each man would tell her, "Tell your master I did this out of love for him," believing they were transferring their spiritual essence to the dead chieftain. The ritual intensified with every passing day as the girl was given more alcohol and drugs while being passed between the men. On the day of the funeral, she was led to the ship for final intimate encounters with 6 different men, each representing a unique aspect of the tribe's power. Ibn Fodlan's account is disturbingly detailed in its description of the ritual. 6 men then entered the pavilion, each taking their turn with the girl before laying her next to her master. The final moment was horrific. The slave girl was strangled with a cord, while an old woman, known as the Angel of Death, simultaneously stabbed her. The ship was then set on fire as the tribe chanted prayers, believing they were ensuring the successful transfer of sexual energy to the afterlife. Modern archaeology has unearthed chilling evidence confirming these brutal practices. The Oberg ship burial in Norway, for example, contained the remains of 2 women, one showing signs of violent death. Similar graves across Scandinavia reveal young women buried alongside high-status men, often with evidence of ritual killing. To the Vikings, this was the highest honor. The slave girl was believed to carry the tribe's collective power to the afterlife, transforming into a goddess-like figure. From today's perspective, however, it stands as one of the most systematic forms of sexual violence disguised as religious ritual. Viking society created a paradox that would confuse both modern feminists and traditionalists. Free Viking women enjoyed rights unknown in much of medieval Europe. They could divorce husbands for sexual inadequacy, inherit land, run businesses, and even propose marriage. Some women became wealthy merchants, controlling trade routes and commanding ships. However, this autonomy was reserved for free women. Enslaved women had no rights and could be used sexually by any free man with no legal recourse. Viking laws protected free women from sexual advances, but these protections didn't extend to slaves, reinforcing the stark divide between freedom and degradation. While some Viking women gained considerable rights, others lived lives of brutal exploitation. Baby girls were sometimes abandoned or killed if families couldn't afford them. The sagas mention fathers exposing unwanted daughters, leaving them to die from cold or predators. This society allowed a few women to hold significant power, while the majority endured unimaginable suffering, all under a legal framework that upheld sexual violence and exploitation as tools of social order. Viking views on same-sex relationships created a complex sexual hierarchy that required legal precision to navigate. Homosexuality was accepted as long as one adhered to the rule of dominance. Warriors often traveled across Europe, collecting both female and male lovers, treating sexual conquest as a trophy. As long as they maintained the active role, their behavior was not only accepted, but celebrated. Even gods like Loki and Odin faced mockery for engaging in practices considered feminine, highlighting how gender and sexuality intersected in Viking culture. Viking law reflected these attitudes with sharp contradictions. There were no prohibitions against homosexuality, but accusations of sexual passivity were punishable by severe penalties. Men who showed any feminine traits, whether in behavior, dress, or sexuality, risked complete social ruin. The pressure to maintain masculine dominance was relentless, and this shaped everything from clothing to religious practices. Viking justice often turned sexual violence into public entertainment. Criminals convicted of sexual offenses might face humiliating public executions, with the crowd cheering as justice was served through ironic violence. The sagas describe festivals where sexual violence became spectacle. Captives were forced to perform degrading acts for Viking amusement, and crowds would bet on how long they would survive various forms of torture. Archaeological evidence backs these brutal accounts, showing ritualized violence that went beyond simple killing. Mutilated bodies often suggest that sexual humiliation was central to Viking punishment, turning rape and torture into a form of performance art. This normalization of sexual violence as entertainment explains how Viking raiders committed such horrors during their conquests, following cultural scripts that made these atrocities not just acceptable, but praiseworthy. The Vikings built a society where sex, power, and violence were tightly intertwined to reinforce dominance. Their calculated practices shaped medieval Europe and continue to influence modern laws, masculinity, and culture. What other shocking historical sexual practices would you like to explore? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more.